Hey, what's up, family? We're back at it again for another episode or another installment of Dad Reads a Bedtime Story. As you guys guessed it, we're still finishing up with R.L. Stine's Goosebumps, My Hairiest Adventure. We are now on chapter 21, so let's go ahead and get right into it. We may be able to finish this one here today. I nearly fell over. I felt as if someone had kicked me in the stomach. Mom, I stammered, but my voice came out as a gasp. Larry, what are you doing? Mom called. She had wandered onto the side of the driveway and was pulling up some dead weeds. What does the tag say? It isn't a tag, I finally managed to choke out. She turned her head back to me. Huh? It isn't a dog tag, I repeated, still holding it between my fingers. It's Lily's gold pirate coin. Mom laughed. Why would Lily give her coin to a dog? Didn't her grandfather give her that coin? I don't know why, I stammered. I don't get it, Mom. The dog's hot breath brushed over my hand. She pulled away from me, settled back, and started scratching her long, floppy ear with her back paw. Are you sure it's a gold coin, Larry? Mom asked, crossing the drive, standing right behind me. I nodded and reached for the coin again. Yeah, it's Lily's gold coin, Mom. It must be some other gold coin, Mom suggested. I'm sure it isn't the same coin. Mom must be right, I decided. I let go of the coin and raised my hand to pet the dog's head. But my hand stopped in midair when I saw the dog's eyes. She had one blue eye and one green eye. Chapter 22. It's Lily, I shrieked, jumping to my feet. My shouts frightened the dog. She uttered a shrill yip, turned, and bolted from the front yard. Lily, come back, I called after her. Come back, Lily. Larry, wait, Mom cried, please. I didn't hear the rest of what she said. Jumping over my backpack, I darted down the street. I hurtled across without slowing to look for cars and kept running towards Lily's house. It is Lily, I told myself. The dog has a green eye and a blue one, and it's wearing Lily's coin. It is Lily, I know it. I could hear my mom calling for me to come back, but I ignored her and kept running. Lily's house was 3 blocks away. I ran at full speed the whole way. By the time her house came into view, I was gasping for breath, and I had a sharp pain in my side. But I didn't care. I had to see Lily. I had to know for sure that the dog wasn't Lily. Such a crazy thought. As I crossed the street, I started to realize how crazy it was. Lily? A dog? Larry, are you totally losing it? I asked myself. Mom must think I'm a total wacko, I realized. Lily, a dog? I slowed down, rubbing the pain in my side, trying to massage it away. I spotted Lily's parents in the driveway. The trunk of their blue Chevy was open. Mr. Vaughn was lifting a suitcase into it. Hi, I called breathlessly. Hey, hi. Hello, Larry, Mrs. Vaughn said as I stepped up to the car. I saw 2 other suitcases and some smaller bags waiting to be loaded into the car. Going on a trip? I asked, struggling to catch my breath. The pain in my side kept throbbing, refusing to go away. They didn't answer. Mr. Vaughn groaned as he hoisted a heavy suitcase into the trunk. Where's Lily? I asked. I handed him one of the smaller bags. She wasn't in school today. We're going away, Miss Vaughn said quietly from behind me. Well, where's Lily? I repeated. Is she inside? Mr. Vaughn frowned but didn't reply. I turned to Lily's mom. Can I see her? I asked impatiently. Is Lily inside? You must have the wrong house, she replied softly. My mouth dropped open. Wrong house? Miss Vaughn, what do you mean? There's no one here named Lily, she said. Chapter 23. For some reason, I burst out laughing. Startled laughter, frightened laughter. Mrs. Vaughn's sad expression cut my laughter short and sent a chill down my back. Is Lily, I started to say. Miss Vaughn grabbed my shoulder and squeezed it. She lowered her face close to mine. Listen to what I'm telling you, Larry, she said through gritted teeth. But, I sputtered. There is no Lily, she repeated, squeezing my shoulder hard. Just forget about her. She had tears in her eyes. Mr. Vaughn slammed the car trunk. I jumped out of Mrs. Vaughn's grasp, my heart pounding. You better go, Mr. Vaughn said firmly, coming over to join his wife. I took a step back. My legs felt weak and shaky. But Lily, I started. You'd better go, Mr. Vaughn repeated. At the side of the garage, I spotted the red-brown dog. She whimpered sadly, her head hung low. I whirled around and ran as fast as I could. Mom and Dad acted so strange at dinner. They refused to discuss Lily or the dog or Lily's parents. Mom and Dad kept glancing at each other, giving each other meaningful looks that I wasn't supposed to see. They think I'm crazy, I realized. That's why they're refusing to talk about it. They think I'm losing my mind. They don't want to say anything to me until they decide how they're going to handle me. I'm not crazy, I shouted, suddenly dropping my fork and knife onto the table. I hadn't touched my spaghetti and meatballs. How could I eat? I'm not crazy. I'm not making this up. Can't we talk about it another time? Mom pleaded, glancing at Dad. Let's just finish our dinner, Dad added, keeping his eyes on his plate. After dinner, I called Jared and Christina over to give them the bad news. I didn't want them to think that I was crazy, so I simply told them that Lily had gone away. But what about tomorrow? Jared cried. Yeah, what about the Battle of the Bands? Christina demanded. How could Lily leave on the day before the contest? I shrugged. We were sitting in the living room. Christina and I sat on opposite ends of the couch. Jared was sprawled in the chair across from me. Jasper brushed over my feet. I leaned down and lifted her up onto my lap. Her yellow eyes stared up at me. Then she closed them and settled against me, purring softly. Where did Lily go? Christina asked angrily, drumming her fingers on the couch arm. On vacation? Why didn't she tell us she was going to miss the contest? Howie Heron will jump for joy when he hears the news, Jared muttered glumly, shaking his head. I don't know where Lily went, I told them. I saw her parents loading her suitcases into the car. Now they're gone. That's all I know. I'm sure Lily is very unhappy. I know Lily wanted to be with us. I don't think she had a choice. I had a sudden urge to tell them everything that had happened, but I didn't want them to start laughing at me or worrying about me. I felt so mixed up. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted Lily back and Manny. That I knew. And I wanted the ugly body hair to stop sprouting all over my body. If only I had never found that bottle of Instatan. This was all my fault, all of it. So I guess the geeks have to pull out of the band contest tomorrow, I said glumly. I guess, Jared repeated, shaking his head. No way, Christina cried, surprising both of us. She jumped to her feet and stood between Jared and me. She balled both hands into fists. No way, she repeated. But we don't have a singer, Jared protested. I can sing, Christina replied quickly. I'm a pretty good singer. But you haven't rehearsed any of the songs, Jared said. Do you know any of the words? Christina nodded. All of them. But Christina, I started. Listen, guys, she said sharply, we have to go on stage tomorrow, even if it's just the three of us. We can't let Howie Heron win tomorrow, can we? I'd like to wipe that grin off Howie's face, I muttered. Me too, Jared agreed. But how can we? 2 guitars and a keyboard? Howie has a full band. He'll blast us out of the auditorium. Not if we play our hearts out, Christina exclaimed with emotion. Not if we give it our best. Let's do it for Lily, I blurted out. The words just tumbled from my mouth. As soon as I said it, I felt embarrassed. But Christina and Jared picked right up on it. Let's do it for Lily, they both cried. We can win. We really can. Let's win it for Lily. So it was decided. The geeks would go on stage tomorrow afternoon. Could we win? Could we beat Howie and the Shouters? Probably not, but we'd give it our best shot. Let's go up to my room and practice a little, I suggested. Jared started down toward the stairs, but Christina didn't move. I turned and found her staring at my face in horror. Larry, she cried, pointing, what's that on your forehead? I gasped in horror. My hand shot up to my forehead. The ugly black hair, it had grown back. I knew, and now Christina and Jared were both staring at it. They both saw that I was becoming some kind of hairy monster. I rubbed my forehead with a trembling hand, smooth. My forehead was smooth. It's right there, Christina pointed. I hurried over to the hallway mirror and gazed up at my forehead. I discovered an orange smear near my right temple. It's spaghetti sauce, I moaned. I must have rubbed it on my face during dinner. I rubbed off the orange spot. My entire body was shaking. Christina had scared me to death over a dumb spot of spaghetti sauce. Larry, are you okay? She asked, standing behind me and staring at my reflection in the mirror. You look kind of weird. I'm okay, I replied quickly, trying to force my body to stop shaking and quaking. Hey, don't get sick, Jared warned. Christina and I can't go on the stage by ourselves tomorrow. I'll be there, I told them. Don't worry, guys. I'll be there. The next afternoon, the whole school jammed into the auditorium to watch the Battle of the Bands. Feeling really nervous, I stood backstage and peeked out through the curtain. The lights in the auditorium were all on, and Mr. Fosberg, the principal, stood in front of the curtain, both arms raised, trying to get everyone quiet. Behind me, Howie Heron and his band were tuning up, adjusting the amps and making sure the sound was right. Marissa was wearing a very short, sparkly red dress over black tights. She caught me staring at her and flashed me a smug smile. The geeks should have dressed up, I realized, watching Marissa. We didn't even think of it. The three of us were wearing t-shirts and jeans, our normal school clothes. I turned and gazed at Howie's new synthesizer keyboard. It was about a mile long and it had 1,000 buttons and dials on it. It made Jared's keyboard look like a baby toy. Howie caught me staring at it. Cool, huh? He called, grinning that gruesome grin of his. Hey, Larry, after we win this contest, you can have my autograph. Howie laughed. So did Marissa and the rest of the shouters. I turned and slumped away to join Jared and Christina at the side of the stage. We're total losers, I moaned, shaking my head. Good attitude, Larry, Jared replied sarcastically. Maybe Howie's giant keyboard will blow out all the fuses, I said glumly. That's our only chance. Christina rolled her eyes. They can't be that good, she muttered. But they were. The auditorium lights darkened. The curtains slid open. Howie and the shouters stepped into the red and blue stage lights and began blasting out the old Chuck Berry rock and roll song, Johnny Be Good. They sounded great and looked great. Marissa's dress sparkled in the light. They had worked out the dance moves and they all danced and moved as they played. We should have thought of that, I told myself glumly, watching from the side of the stage. When we played, the three of us just stand around, like geeks. The kids in the auditorium went crazy. They all jumped to their feet and began clapping along, moving and dancing. They stayed on their feet for all four of the shouter songs. Each song came louder and faster than the last. The old auditorium rocked and shook so hard I thought the floor might cave in. Then, as Howie and Marissa and the others took their bows, the auditorium erupted in wild cheers and shouts of more, more, more. So Howie and the shouters did two more songs. Jared and Christina and I kept casting tense glances at each other as they played. This wasn't doing a whole lot for our confidence. Finally, Howie and Marissa took several more bows and ran off stage, waving their fists high above their heads in triumph. Your turn, Howie called at me as he ran past. He grinned. Hey, Larry, where's the rest of your band? I started to reply angrily, but Jared gave me a hard shove, and the three of us moved uncertainly onto the stage. I bent down and plugged my guitar into the amp. Jared worked quickly to adjust the sound level of his little keyboard. Howie's giant keyboard had been pushed to the back of the stage. It seemed to stare at us, reminding us how good and how loud the shouters had sounded. Christina stood tensely at her microphone, her arms crossed in front of her t-shirt. I played a few chords, testing the level of the amp. My hands felt cold and sweaty. They slipped over the strings. The audience was talking and laughing, restless, waiting for us to start. Are we ready? I whispered to Jared and Christina. Let's do I Want to Hold Your Hand first, then go into the Rolling Stones song. They nodded. I took a deep breath and steadied my hands on my guitar. Jared leaned over the keyboard. Christina uncrossed her arms and stepped to the microphone, jamming both hands into her jean pockets. We started the Beatles Song. It was shaky at first. All three of us sang on this one, and the harmony was off. My guitar was too loud. It was drowning out our voices. But I wanted to stop and turn it down, but of course I couldn't. The audience sat quietly, listening. They didn't jump to their feet and start dancing. They applauded loudly as we finished the song, but it was a polite applause. No loud cheering, no real enthusiasm. At least we got through it, I told myself, wiping my sweaty hands on my jeans leg. I stepped forward as we started the Rolling Stones song. I had a really long guitar solo on this number. I was praying I didn't mess up. I nodded to Jared and Christina. Christina grabbed the floor microphone with both hands, leaning close to it. Jared started the song on the keyboard. I started my solo. Badly. I messed up the first chords. My heart started to thump. My mouth was suddenly too dry to swallow. I closed my eyes and tried to shut out everything, to concentrate on my fingers, on the music. As I played, the audience started to cheer. A few shouts at first, some scattered applause, but then the cheering grew louder and louder. Happily, I opened my eyes. Several kids were on their feet, shouting and laughing. I bent my knees and let my fingers move over the frets, the pick moving automatically now over the strings. I was starting to feel good, really good. The cheers grew louder. I realized that several kids were pointing at me. What's going on? I wondered, and I suddenly knew that something was wrong. The cheers were too loud. The laughter was too loud. Too many kids were jumping up and pointing fingers at me. Great special effects, I heard a boy from the first row shout. Yeah, great special effects. Huh? I thought, what special effects? It didn't take me long to figure out. As Christina started to sing, I reached my hand up and rubbed it over my face. I cried out in horror as I felt the stiff, prickly hair. My face was covered in it, my chin, my cheeks, my forehead. The thick black hair had sprouted over my entire face, and the whole school was staring at it, staring at me. The whole school knew my horrible, embarrassing secret. We won, we won. This is chapter 25. We won, we won. I heard Jared and Christina shouting gleefully behind me. But I set my guitar on the stage floor, turned away from them, and started to run. The kids in the auditorium were still shouting and cheering. We had won the contest because of my amazing hairy transformation. Great special effects, that kid had shouted. The special effects had won the day. But I wasn't feeling like a winner. I felt like an ugly freak. The bushy hair had covered my face, then spread down to my neck and shoulders. Both hands were covered in bristly fur, and I could feel it growing up my arms. My back began to itch. Was it growing on my back, too? Hey, Larry, Larry. I heard Christina and Jared calling, the trophy. Come get the trophy. But I was out the stage door, the wild cheers of the audience ringing in my ears, out of the back of the school, into a chilly gray afternoon. Dark clouds low over the trees. Running now, running blindly, my heart thudding. Running home, covered in thick black fur. Running in panic and shame and fear. The houses and trees passed in a gray blur. As I turned up my driveway, I saw Mom and Dad back by the garage. They both turned to me, surprise on their faces. Look at me, I shrieked. Look! My voice burst out, hoarse and terrified. Now do you believe me? They gaped at me, their mouths wide open in shock and horror. I held up my hands so they could see my arms. Do you see my face? I wailed. See my arms? My hands? They both gasped. Mom grabbed Dad's arm. Now do you believe me? I cried. Now do you believe that the Instatan lotion makes hair grow? I stood staring at them, my chest heaving, panting loudly, tears in my eyes. I stood waiting for them to say something. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Larry, it isn't the tanning lotion, she said softly, holding tightly on to Dad. We tried to keep it from you, but we can't any longer. Huh? Keep what from me? I demanded. They exchanged glances. Mom let out a sob. Dad slipped his arm around her. It isn't the tanning lotion, Dad said in a trembling voice. Larry, you have to know the truth now. You're growing all that hair because you're not a human. You're a dog. Ooh, chapter 26. I bent down and lapped up some water from the plastic water bowl Mom and Dad had put in the front stoop for me. It's so hard to drink without splashing water all over my snout. Then I bounded down the steps on all fours and joined Lily over by the evergreen shrubs. We sniffed the shrubs for a while. Then we loped off to the next yard to see if there was anything interesting to sniff. It's been 2 weeks since my human body vanished and I turned back into my real dog identity. Luckily, before I changed back, Mom and Dad, or should I say Mr. and Mrs. Boyd, were nice enough to explain to me what happened. They work for Dr. Merkin, you see. In fact, everyone in town works for Dr. Merkin. The whole town is kind of an experimental testing lab. A few years ago, Dr. Merkin found a way to change dogs into children. He discovered a serum that made us dogs look and think and act like people. That's what my shots were. He gave me fresh serum every 2 weeks. But after a while, the serum doesn't work anymore. It wears off and the children go back to being dogs. Dr. Merkin has decided to stop testing the serum on dogs, Mom told me. It just doesn't work, and it causes families too much pain when the children turn back into dogs. He's never going to work with dogs again, Dad explained. The serum just doesn't last long enough with dogs, so no more dogs. It was nice of the boys to explain to me what had happened. I felt so grateful. I licked their hands, then I ran off to find Lily to show her that I was a dog too. Lily and I roam around together all the time. Sometimes Manny joins us. There's so many dogs roaming around in this town. I guess they all were humans for a while. I'm glad Dr. Merkin isn't using dogs for his test anymore. Dogs should be dogs, in my humble opinion. Lily and I found some good dirt to sniff in the neighbor's flower garden, but there aren't any flowers to dig up yet. But the dirt smells really great. Then I saw the Boyd's car roll up the driveway. They've been gone all afternoon. I went running up eagerly to the car, wagging my tail happily. I jumped up and barked out a greeting. To my surprise, Mrs. Boyd was carrying a baby, a tiny baby, tightly wrapped in pink blankets. She held the baby in both arms and carried it carefully up the walk toward the house. Mr. Boyd had a big smile on his face as he caught up to her. What a good little girl, Mrs. Boyd cooed to the baby. Yes, you are. You are a good little girl. Welcome to your new home, Jasper. Huh? I thought. Isn't Jasper a funny name for a little girl? Then I stared up at the baby and saw her bright yellow eyes. All right, all right. So we just finished R.L. Stine's Goosebumps. Today was a little bit of a longer session, so I want to cut it short so that everyone can get to bed. But definitely thank you guys all for joining us on Dad Reads a Bedtime Story. Keep in mind we're doing all that we can to kind of help raise awareness about literacy. So we'll be here every night with a different book for you guys. Thanks, and everyone have a great one.